Howdy everyone, this is Dave, and I wanted to point out an interesting Disney villain that gets practically no love. In this video, we will be discussing Murloc the Magician and the flick he's in, DuckTales the movie, Treasure of the Lost Lamp. This bad boy came out in 1990, and I had it on VHS growing up. Growing up in an era of no internet, you tended to watch what movies you owned over and over and over again. My sister and I watched this a lot. And as I watched it again, it was like I was remembering it in real time. The movie takes place between the third and fourth season of DuckTales, but you don't have to be caught up on all that to watch it. All you have to know are the essential characters that you'd see in the show. The feature kicks off with Scrooge McDuck, Launchpad, Webby, and the nephews flying like lunatics to a dig site in the Middle East. Launchpad is a competent pilot, so I'm not sure what happened or why he's flying that massive plane like that. About to kill everyone. Either way, it makes for a good intro and it pulls you in. They find the location of the treasure of Kali Baba, a top-tier thief that hid his treasure in the desert centuries prior. They don't realize that they're being watched from a distance. They have to dig up an entire pyramid that serves as a resting place for the loot. There are booby traps and whatnot, but eventually they set eyes on the treasure.
Yeah, boy!
Upon finding it, Scrooge and the gang are stoked to begin loading it up to transport out. Webby finds an oil lamp amongst the gold and jewels, and asks Scrooge if she could keep it as a teapot for her tea set. Scrooge reluctantly allows for it. They are all betrayed by their guide, Dijon, who is in cahoots with Merlock the Magician, an ancient sorcerer voiced by Christopher Lloyd.
Great Scott.
Murloc steals the treasure and then promptly tries to kill everyone by having the entire party, which includes 4 children, be torn apart by massive scorpions. Like what the hell, man?
Fuck the children.
They escape and the movie continues, but Webby still has the old lamp. And when it's rubbed, it produces a comical genie played by Rip Taylor. Hijinks ensue with the genie and the kids. Murloc stole the entire treasure in hopes of finding the lamp. So when he realizes it isn't in the mound of gold, he gets pissed, and then goes back out and search for it, leaving the treasure to be lost in the desert sands. There were some of Murloc's abilities that stuck out to me after watching this again.
I got you, homie!
Not even counting magic. He's a formidable opponent physically, standing taller and being able to carry weight that supersedes any other character's strength. He's aggressive too. There are many instances where he resorts to physical violence and intimidation instead of using a spell or enchanted item to influence people. The movie doesn't go into too much detail about the extent of his powers. He doesn't really use magic except to shapeshift. He has a magic talisman that grants him the ability to transform into any animal he desires. So for all we know, he could have been an enforcer or some sort of barbarian brute before killing someone for the magic talisman, then afterwards fancied himself a mage without studying any further. So he's like a fighter with magical properties that are tied to a specific item and has no skills that he's earned by his own merit. With the actions we see him willing to take in this movie, it can be assumed that he acquired the talisman by ill-gotten means. Dude's got no problem leaving a mountain of corpses in his wake. It's important to point out that DuckTales takes place in a world of anthropomorphic animals, meaning that these ducks have human characteristics, such as wearing clothes and having jobs. This could be confusing to think about if you ponder on it too hard. It is plausible for these duck people to go to the park and feed bread to non-anthropomorphic ducks. Sometimes you see animals that are just animals. Would it be considered zoophilia if a duck person was attracted to the park duck?
Look at those tits!
Okay, anyways. The reason I'm bringing that up is because when Murloc shapeshifts into an animal, it's in the form of a non-anthropomorphic animal. This really helps him out, and it's interesting to see what he chooses to turn into to suit the situation. There are a couple parts where he turns into something small to infiltrate the area. Then there are some parts where he doesn't care about playing it quiet and turns into an apex predator and starts wrecking the joint. One scene in particular, he changes into a fucking bear and bursts into a room and annihilates it. The scary part is that even though he's a non-anthropomorphic animal, he still has his mind in there, and it really shows what the character could be capable of. Like talk about overkill having a bear catch up with a duck. Imagine that bear attack scene in The Revenant, except with Scrooge McDuck. Scrooge would be utterly wrecked. He's very sure of himself throughout the whole thing, but in actuality, he's near defenseless. It would be a massacre, as he would be ripped apart and possibly consumed by a bear that had an unhinged person's mind inside. It's pretty dark when you think about it. The only duck that seems to know what's going on is the genie. There are numerous times where the genie is racked with anxiety because he knows what Murloc is capable of and how he plays a part in the sorcerer's evil plan. See, Murloc lost the lamp to Kali Baba centuries before the movie begins. But prior to that, Murloc was in total control. His talisman could be used in tandem with the lamp to grant Murloc unlimited wishes. His first wish was to become immortal. This came out before Aladdin, and you can see some similar vibes of a sorcerer wanting to control a more powerful being in order to control the world. Genie provides exposition on the atrocities that he had to commit under Murloc's influence, such as sinking Atlantis and causing an eruption of Mount Vesuvius, which consequently destroyed the city of Pompeii. And these were for apparently very minute reasons. Genie was a conduit for Murloc's evil and likely feels overwhelming guilt for killing thousands of people. The genie isn't trying to cause any problems, he just wants to live a normal life, but is constantly being sought out by greedy people, the desires to control him, and the selfish wishes that are made that he must grant, no matter how terrible. It's cool how they show consequences of not thinking wishes through, like when Webby wishes that all of her stuffed animals were alive. Like what? Living stuffed animals that act like the animals that they are? No thank you. There's evidence that they are carnivorous too. How do you stop them? If you cut off one of their appendages, does the amputated limb move independently? These are the questions I want answers to. At least if one swallows you whole, you won't suffocate if the fabric is breathable, and you may be able to cut or rip your way out of the stuffing. There's also a wish where the genie magically lobotomizes Scrooge to soften the blow of them getting in trouble for staying out too late. I can see where Murloc would find this beneficial to his world domination plot. It'd be more effective than Homelander from The Boys to just have a genie wave his fingers and people's brains explode in their skulls, or have their lungs expand too far and pop, or tricking your enemies to just fight each other. Scrooge eventually discovers the genie and the lamp and gets super excited about the unbelievable wealth he can amass. For his first wish, he wishes for the treasure of Kali Baba that was stolen by Merlock to appear in his living room. Soon after, Scrooge goes to a party with the genie, and Merlock and Dijon show up. At some point, Dijon gets a hold of the lamp, and instead of delivering it to Merlock, decides that he is now the master of the lamp, and he wants his wishes. Dijon fucks everything up for Scrooge by wishing for all of his money and assets, including his mansion. When Scrooge arrives home and sees what's going on, he finds himself trespassing and is arrested and thrown in jail. The Duck family bails Scrooge out, and then they plan a full-on assault on the money bin to try to get the lamp back and hopefully turn everything back to normal. I gotta take a moment to talk about Dijon. He's a total bitch. But you can't really blame a guy for being that nervous when he's under constant threat and assault from Murloc. I'm not sure why he got wrapped up working with this madman, but he is subject to non-stop abuse. His scrawny body is always being manhandled in some way or another. And Murloc tells Dijon every opportunity he can that if he fails, then it's coming out of his ass in the form of utter suffering or some sort of annihilation. Dijon is a live wire, to say the least. So the fucking balls on this guy to betray Murloc like that. Bravo, sir. You have my respect for that at least. But you shouldn't be sticking around in an abusive relationship with a maniacal magician. You're brainwashed, bro. Ultimately, Merlock gets a hold of the lamp first.
Surprise, motherfucker!
And places the talisman on it, granting him unlimited wishes. The money bin is then turned into a horrific lair. The ducks fight for control and Merlock turns into a griffin. Up until this point, we've seen Merlock as a cockroach, a rat, a massive bird of prey, not sure what kind, maybe a hawk, a vulture, a cougar, and a bear. While in each of these forms he did not have the ability to talk. Now he's turned into a creature from mythology and is able to speak. Imagine you're one of these kids and this massive griffin is hovering over you and says,
I'll be back for you.
before taking off. It's at this point in the movie where I thought to myself, Murloc has been alive for a long time. The word centuries is thrown around. He's not very pleasant, and many times is conspicuous and makes a scene. It's obvious that he's been that way for a minute. He likely has never had an issue with the authorities because he could just change into something and walk or fly away. The feuds and rivalries he's had over the years, where he's ultimately the victor because his enemies have all died from living a natural life, is an interesting thought as well. You're telling me that Scrooge McDuck is the #1 arch rival of all time, though? The one that finally got the better of him? Murloc has killed an unfathomable amount of people, and this old duck is the one that you have the most trouble with? That's very humbling. Scrooge and Murloc have a brief aerial battle. Scrooge beats the ever-loving shit out of Murloc with his cane, really letting him have it. It turns out it wasn't all talk. Scrooge cracks Murloc's hand that was holding the talisman.
Damn.
And it falls away. He changes back to his normal form and falls to his assumed demise. It is unclear if his immortality prevents death if an injury is sustained, but it makes the fact that he survived this long without being crushed or stabbed rather impressive. If that's the case, then he's almost died quite a few times when he's going around as a smaller creature. So you'd think he'd be more careful. Scrooge midair wishes that everything was back to normal and uses his final wish to grant the genie his freedom, which is honestly the way to go. I'm not sure if the genie sticks around in Duckburg for the rest of the series, or if this is just a one-time thing for the movie, but judging by how Aladdin did it, it seems like making the genie your legit friend grants you far more wishes than if you're a strict master a-hole. I mean, after he's free, how many times does the genie do stuff for Al without even thinking about it? You'd make out like a bandit. Always free your genies. In summary, I think that Murloc was a very interesting villain, and is extremely underrated. This guy is a psychopath and very brutal. He will sacrifice anything to meet his goals. Definitely a sick bastard. Alright everyone, that's all I have for now. If you like what you saw here, please feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And until next time, have a good one.